Finally tonight, the concussion protocol has been a big topic among Bills fans for the last few weeks, ever since Dolphins QB Tua Tagovailoa got back into the game against the Bills not long after he took a hit to the head and got up kind of wobbly. Well, a doctor involved was fired. The league acknowledged that the protocol didn't work as intended, and now the rules meant to keep NFL players from suffering repeat serious head injuries is getting an update. And joining us live now is our Bills insider, Vic Carucci, who we know has plenty to say about it all. And Vic, I want to start with the rules here. What is actually changing, and does it even matter?
Well, I guess the second part of that question we'll see. But what it is the NFL taking yet another step to remove the cavalier approach, which is what I think is somewhat out there, whether anyone admits it or not, and replacing it with the, if we're going to make a mistake, we'll err on the side of caution. We'll take the guy out. We'll keep the guy out. You saw that with the Miami Dolphins with Teddy Bridgewater. Miami ends up with a third-string quarterback as a result. So there is definitely going to be, I would say, overprotection, if that's the right way to put it. A long way away, Kate, from the days, call them the bad old days, when it was pretty standard for teams to have their athletic trainer give a cheat sheet for the how many fingers am I holding up test. And the answer, and I know this for a fact, it was with the Bills, is always going to be 2 guys, no matter how many fingers you see. Okay, go back in the game if they answer the question right.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that Bridgewater situation, because he passed the concussion test but then couldn't get back into the game. You know, how does that work exactly? Is that just being overly cautious there?
Well, and again, when you raise the bar, raise the standard for what is going to keep players out, you're going to see more of that, not just with quarterbacks, other players as well. I was curious to see if that was a case with the Dolphin tight end yesterday who left the game concussion. It wasn't even entering concussion protocol. He had a concussion. So I think you're going to have more absolutes when it comes to that. And I also think that it's affecting how officials are going to be calling games. The protection, I mean, they're already accused of going overboard when it comes to protecting the quarterback. But what we saw between the Buccaneers and the Falcons, where you had Tom Brady, you had a defensive player for the Falcons, throw him down. He rolled him down. It couldn't have been a softer sack, really, in the eyes of at least most people who saw it. And yet there was a personal foul assessed. Tom Brady, if there was a personal foul, it should have been him. He was trying to kick the guy in a sensitive area and missed. And then, of course, that penalty had a lot to do with the Buccaneers winning the game.
So you think, Vic, is this about the league evolving to protect its players, or is it going overboard?
I think, Kate, it is about image. And that's what the NFL has long been about. Always the optics, always what looks good, what makes us look like we're doing our best. Is it disingenuous? I won't go that far, but the league has a history of adding layers to rules, adding layers, especially when it's come to player safety, because there's been concussion lawsuits. I mean, you've had class action among players suing the league. So they're very sensitive about this. And I think it's about that more than anything, but it's making life more difficult, not only for teams. If you have a legitimate situation where a guy should come back in the game, it can compromise you. I think it helped compromise the Dolphins in a loss. That could be costly, divisional loss to the Jets. And I think officials, their scrutiny and their jobs being on the line, when they're making these calls that can obviously make the difference between a coach's job security, staying on the job or being fired, or any other changes that can be made within a football team. These are the kinds of things that I think are I'm going to say dangerous, but I know, people say, well, wait a minute, Vic, concussions are the most dangerous thing. I know, but you start flirting into areas where you're making it more difficult for everybody. That's where you got to take a step back and take a breath and say, are we doing the right things here?
What about the players, Vic? Any sense of how they come down on this, or is it just sort of whatever the NFL says we're going to do?
players come down on the idea of what's best for me to play and continue my career and have longevity. This is a short lifespan, the career of a player on average, right? Under 4 years or so. So they know that every snap they have in a game is precious, and they'll do anything to continue to have those snaps. So injury gets in the way of that, and fighting through injury is what allows them to keep going. And it's a judgment. It's an evaluation thing. Is the guy, you hear fragile? Is the guy tough? You know, can he tough it out? Or a guy is described as tough because he plays through injuries. Again, some of these terms kind of ridiculous, I know, but they're actual. They're real.
Like you said, Vic, time will kind of tell on this. And speaking of time, very quickly before we go, there were a couple of reports from a couple sources today that the Bills reached out to the Panthers about star running back Christian McCaffrey. Is that realistic or just a fan's pipe dream? What do you think?
Well, this has been something some fans have been clamoring about for a while. The trade deadline's coming up November 1st, so it's possible that something could be done. They just fired their head coach, Matt Rule, in Carolina. A lot of things are kind of coming apart at the seams there, so it could be a case where he would want out. And, of course, we know all about the Bills and Panthers connections.
We always appreciate the insight. Mr. Vic Carucci, our Bills insider, thanks again for being here on the Town Hall.
All right, Kate.